Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Politics here at The Hindu with me, Nistula Hebbar, where we unpack the news making the headlines in domestic politics. There was no episode last week because I was on vacation, but it seems that the Congress party, which launched its Bharat Jodo Yatra, certainly wasn't. And basically, they launched a Padyatra or a march, on a long march on foot and are set to cover 3,570 kilometers from Kanniyakumari to Kashmir. For the next 5 months or so, former Congress President Rahul Gandhi and a select band of 118 Bharat Yatris drawn from the Congress party itself will be on a march on foot along a pre-decided route. The Congress party, for long accused of a largely somnolent approach to its role as an opposition party, wishes to hit a few targets with what is being termed as one of the biggest mass mobilization exercises by the Congress post independence, according to its leaders. Well, as yatras go, as we all know, it's not a new concept in Indian politics, in fact, even politics internationally, be it the Bharat Yatra by former Prime Minister Chandrasekhar in the early 1980s. And here I'm only referring to post-independence yatras. As I said, the Bharat Yatra by former Prime Minister Chandrasekhar and the erstwhile Janata Party in the 1980s, or the Ram Rath Yatra by former Deputy Prime Minister L.K. Advani at the height of the Ram Janmabhoomi movement, or even an apolitical civil society tour de force of Baba Amte's again Bharat Jodo Yatra, interestingly, in the 1980s, have all been part of India's post-independence political journey, whether it be political or apolitical. In such a scenario, what is the Congress's aim with this Padyatra other than mobilization of support and display of organizational strength? And is the party on course to hitting the bullseye in politics that it wants to? The Congress's aims are a mix of internal and external, according to those in the know. Let's first go by what has been said in public statements by Congress leaders with regard to the Yatra. Well, at a press conference to launch the Yatra at Kanyakumari, the march will go from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, party leaders said that the Yatra was to bridge social divisions in the country, as fostered, according to them, by Hindutva politics. It is to raise awareness on issues like price rise and unemployment, to mobilize public opinion on it, and also to reach out to civil society in terms of Congress ideology, the spread of Congress ideology, or the revival of Congress ideology, so to speak. On the face of it, the Yatra is a good move for any political party in terms of a strategy. It requires mobilization of both people and party cadre, which the march can do. It's a key to a political expansion and future electoral successes based on this kind of mobilization, and something that has been eluding the Congress party of late. But the route of the Yatra itself raised questions as the march got underway. There were all sorts of issues with regard to the Yatra. One was, of course, that this was again another kind of move to relaunch Rahul Gandhi, which was refuted by Congress leaders. They said that the entire party machinery has been mobilized. Rahul Gandhi himself said that he had made up his mind as far as the party presidential polls was concerned, kind of giving out a feeling that he was not interested in the party president's job. So that criticism was set aside. But the route itself had raised questions as the march got underway. The march from South India to North of India misses out on the election going state of Gujarat, where the BJP and the Congress are face to face, and Gujarat is also the home state of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And the march has allotted too little time, barely 2 days, according to the original itinerary, in the politically crucial state of Uttar Pradesh. Although I'm told that the time spent in Uttar Pradesh has now been increased to 5 days after this criticism was leveled against the Congress. Now, critics have also said that the Yatra also spends an inordinate 18 days in the one state of Kerala alone, where the BJP is not a player at all, leading to accusations by other political parties and regional parties, specifically that the Congress party only wants to go through states where it is assured of a good welcome by party workers and leaders and avoid the political tougher states for it. The Congress has refuted these allegations and said that it had drawn 5 alternative routes for the Yatra and had finalized the current one, as it could all be done on foot, whereas the Yatris would have had to go on other means of transport to reach other points on other routes. The very important issue of security concerns also fed into this particular route being chosen for the Bharat Jodo Yatra as compared to the other 4 that were also mooted. Now, the criticism by regional party leaders over the route and indeed that Congress's messaging as the big tent party, despite shrinking political base, is interesting in that it reflects the pulls and pushes within the opposition space for leadership. State chief ministers like Mamata Banerjee, Arvind Kejriwal and K. Chandrasekhar Rao of the Telangana Rashtra Samiti have not minced any words on what they feel should be the Congress's space in the opposition camp. They feel that rather than the Congress, it is the regional parties that have resisted the electoral domination of the BJP. The Congress refuted it and fielded its General Secretary in charge of the media, Jairam Ramesh, to counter this particular argument. Mr. Ramesh spoke at a press conference where he said that the Congress was an elephant that had awakened and it sees no opposition fight back without the Congress at the helm of it. Now, so as we see, the roots were an issue. Congress countered it with some logic of its own, whatever that they wanted to say in terms of their logistics and in terms of political issues. But the Yatra has also raised issues with regard to the opposition space. And the third interesting question that the Yatra has brought to the fore is the situation within the Congress. It remains rudderless and directionless. The 18 days that the party is spending in Kerala and the walking out of 8 out of the 11 MLAs that the Congress had in the Goa Assembly over to the BJP camp at the start of the Yatra reflects that this malaise of rudderlessness, directionlessness, infighting, etc., it runs deep in various state units and nationally as well. Leaders of the party say that the 18 days of the Yatra spent in Kerala were because of the faction-ridden nature of the state unit. They said this was the only way they could ensure that both K.C. Venugopal, AICC General Secretary, and Ramesh Channitala, leader of the one of the senior leaders of the Congress in Kerala, and clearly not friends in terms of the turf war that's happening in Kerala Congress, appeared together. And how often do you get to see that in Kerala Congress at any function being held in Kerala? So basically, it was a show of unity that was important in a state where the Congress did well and hopes to do well again in 2024. So in the larger context of the Yatra of mobilization, organizational, enthusiasm, engendering organizational enthusiasm and flexibility, there were these little messages that were being sent out, a show of unity in Kerala, to basically also go to states where there were regional parties and saying that, no, we are the leaders of the opposition grouping and regional parties have to revolve around the big Congress tent. Well, as far as Goa was concerned, party leaders said that with the presidential polls for the Congress due at the end of the month, and in the case of in the case that there is more than one candidate, that there would be actually an election there. It will be held on October 17th. It will hopefully decide the leader and the direction that the party will take. Whether, as we discussed in the previous episode of Talking Politics, it will be Rahul Gandhi, who seems to be giving hints that it won't be him, or a placeholder for the Gandhi family, somebody who is like Ashok Gehlot, considered a loyalist and would be put up as the Gandhi-backed candidate, or someone who will throw their hat in the ring as a challenger, somebody like Shashi Tharoor or Manish Tiwari. For good or bad, the uncertainty over the leadership of the Congress will also be over in the early part of this yatra. And Congress leaders feel that after the Congress leadership question is decided, events like what happened in Goa may also come down. In the end, as the Hindu's editorial on the yatra said, what matters will be what the undecided section of the Indian population makes of this yatra. Between the committed voters of the BJP, other political parties, and the Congress, there is 10 to 20% of vote that is still undecided, that actually decides who gets to win. It is to convince the general public of the party that is important. That is an important part of this yatra, and also Rahul Gandhi's capacity to lead a change, the ability to motivate Congress workers demoralized after being pulverized by not just electoral defeats but a refusal of the leadership to learn from these defeats and sort out the leadership issue, and for all of this to be a sustained, process driven effort and not a flash in the pan. All of these are long term issues with a short deadline for some of the results to show. The Gujarat and Himachal Assembly polls, but most importantly, the 2024 polls. The Congress has finally hit the streets, and we await the outcome of all of this on electoral politics going ahead, especially 2024 elections. This is all I have for you this week. Thank you for watching.